Sir Henry Simmerson is the quintessential incompetent antagonist of the Sharpe series. A man whose arrogance is only matched by his staggering ineptitude. A privileged, pompous English officer more concerned with status and wealth than the lives of his men. Simmerson repeatedly finds himself crossing paths with Richard Sharpe, often disastrously. But who exactly is this notorious villain? Where does he come from? And why does he become one of Sharpe's most memorable adversaries? This is a deep dive into the life, legacy, and layered portrayal of Sharpe's most frustrating and unforgettable nemesis, Sir Henry Simmerson. Sir Henry Simmerson is introduced in Bernard Cornwell's novels as an upper-class English aristocrat, obsessed with appearance, wealth, and social rank. Unlike capable officers who earn respect through merit and battlefield success, Simmerson bought his commission as Colonel of the South Essex Regiment, a common practice for wealthy aristocrats in the British Army of the early 19th century. Simmerson's privileged upbringing fostered an overwhelming sense of entitlement, contempt for lower ranks, and unshakable belief in his own superiority. His disdainful attitude towards common soldiers and lower class officers like Richard Sharpe is both his defining trait and biggest flaw. What we know of his background can be read from the novels. As said by Hogan, he explains that Simmerson's background as a Justice of the Peace, Member of Parliament for Peglesham, and a colonel in the militia. He is also a distant cousin of General Sir Barnester Tarleton, whose legend is known well from his actions during the Revolutionary Wars between Britain and her former colonies. He thus has some influence at Horse Guards, which serves to protect him to a considerable extent from the full consequences of his cowardice and military ineptitude. His considerably inherited wealth has allowed him to not only purchase his commission in the army, but also raise the regiment at his own expense. Needless to say, this man is not a good person, and during the series, we will find out why. First introduced to the odious creature Simmerson in Sharpe's Eagle. In the show, Michael Cochrane brings Simmerson to life. In his opening scenes, Simmerson arrives with the newly raised South Essex Regiment in Portugal, and from the moment he steps on screen, Cochrane radiates entitlement. Ramrod stiff posture, clipped tones, and a condescending sneer. His treatment of his men is rather tyrannical, forcing them to wear stocks, and flogs men for fun. We can see this early on when Dobbs faints during Simmerson's forced march. His utter disgust that this common soldier would embarrass him is incredibly portrayed, giving us a glimpse into what more we can expect. This is the same in the novels. He was addicted to scarification for himself and flogging for his men, even for the slightest offence. With more money than sense, and completely lacking any humanity, honour and decency, Simmerson has neither morals nor backbone, and as we know early on in Sharpe's Eagle, Wellesley wants rid of him. He treats Richard Sharpe with immediate disdain, unable to conceal his horror that a common-born soldier commands his detachment of rifles, initially demanding he take off the green jacket and replace it with British red. He is also joined by equally repulsive men, in his nephew Christian Gibbons and his friend Mr. Berry. Yes, that is correct, that is a very young Daniel Craig. Now, in fairness, Sharpe was warned by Major Lennox before entering the tent that he was about to meet a bloody bad soldier, so he can't say he was surprised. This is a slight change from the novels. Major Lennox is captain, and not major. His hatred towards Sharpe is enhanced when Sharpe is able to get the South Essex to fire 4 rounds a minute, a feat to which Simmerson says is absolutely impossible. Although had they not succeeded in firing at least 3 rounds a minute, Simmerson would have enforced floggings on all of the men. Michael Cochrane nails this layered arrogance. Simmerson is all performance, loud orders, bombastic speeches, and puffed up sense of military grandeur. His incompetence is obvious through the episode, and Sharpe is always one step ahead, whether that be quick marching past his men, sitting comfortably enjoying some nice wild rabbits, or being a chivalrous gentleman towards those in need. Needless to say, Simmerson's go-to response is always to flog someone, and Cochrane balances bullying with self-satisfaction, relishing the opportunity to assert dominance. On the battlefield, he is about as military savvy as a sheep in a minefield. This is evident during the mission to blow up the bridge at Valdebecassa. When Sharpe's lads are about to blow up the bridge, some French scouts appear. Now, anyone with a brain would have given them a good show just by blowing the bridge up as soon as possible. Yet Simmerson, cunning as a brick, decides to send the men over, commanded by Major Lennox for combat, to the amazement of all around him. This obviously leads to an ambush from the French cavalry, and combat ensues. Many men die, including Major Lennox. Simmerson, showing the coward he is, rather than sending a rescue party over, decides to just blow up the bridge, leaving Sharpe and a lot of men stranded. However, the most shameful part of this action was the loss of the king's colours. This is what happens in the show. In the novels there are some differences. It isn't just Simmerson's regiment there. They accompany a Spanish regiment of equal number, the Regimiento de la Santa Maria. Upon arrival, the Spanish insisted on crossing the bridge since the British unit had arrived first. Spanish pride insisted that they go further. Simmerson then insisted his battalion cross as well, only to face the foraging party of French cavalry. The two infantry units formed square, and the French applauded, ironically, having no apparent intention of engaging. The veteran Lennox wondered, doesn't the fool realise they won't attack us? Does he think that we're going to lumber around this field like a cow chasing a fox? When Spanish troops fired on the departing French, the French answered the attack and broke the Spanish square. In a complete rout, the Spanish fled and lost both of their colours to the French. The British square was also broken, and many of the untried troops fled, only to be cut down by the cavalry. Sharpe and his rifles rallied the survivors and reformed them, while Lennox tried to rebuild a much depleted square to protect the colours. Unfortunately, the French did take the king's colours, while Sharpe and Harper did manage to rescue the regimental colours. Then, during a second French attack, Sharpe rallied the survivors to take a French artillery piece and drive them from the field. A battle that did not need to be fought. Simmerson was responsible for the loss of 242 men, killed or injured, including a major, 3 captains, 5 lieutenants, 4 ensigns, and 10 sergeants. Now back to the show, and to one of the most played scenes in Sharpe, the dressing down of Simmerson. Simmerson attempted to lie his way out of trouble with Sir Arthur Wellesley. However, Wellesley was aware of Simmerson's duplicity due to a report filed by Major Hogan. Wellesley thoroughly dressed down Simmerson for losing the colours and for lying. What he was especially incensed about, that Simmerson tried to blame a dead man for his own mistake. And that's where we get the famous line.
Major Lennox answered with his life, as you should have done if you had any sense of honour. You lost the colours of the King of England. You disgraced us, sir. You shamed us, sir. You will answer.
Instead of promoting Simmerson's nephew Gibbons to captain of the South Essex Light Company, he instead advanced Sharpe to that rank. Simmerson tried to intimidate Wellesley by mentioning his cousin at Horse Guard and friends at court, but Wellesley brushed him off by saying,
"A man who loses the king's colours loses the king's friendship."
This is pretty accurate to the novels, except that Simmerson explicitly tries to make Sharpe a scapegoat and intends of ruining Sharpe's career via his connections at Horse Guard. The dressing down is Sharpe, but Cornwall laces it up with more behind-the-scenes political manoeuvring. Simmerson escapes total disgrace thanks to his connections, though he is removed from command and has his regiment placed as a battalion of detachments in the division of General Daddy Hill. Now, at the Battle of Talavera, Simmerson is, firstly, quite arrogant. However, seeing a French column approach his position, he flees. Sharpe steadies the South Essex, much improved by his training, and leaves them under the command of Captain Leroy. They succeed in stopping the French attack, and at just the right moment, Sharpe and his riflemen attack the wavering French soldiers in the flank, sending them into headlong retreat. Sharpe then is able to capture the French Imperial Eagle, restoring honour to Lennox and the South Essex. In the novels, Simmerson also panics after seeing the French column approach. He orders the South Essex to withdraw, despite direct orders from the British 2nd Division commander, General Daddy Hill, opening a gap in the lines. Sharpe desperately deploys his men to delay the French from exploiting it. Sharpe's friend, Lieutenant Colonel William Lawford, relieves Simmerson of command and orders the South Essex back into position, where their volleys destroy the column's cohesion. Sharpe leads the light company and his rifles into the fray, and, as in the show, he captures the French Eagle. This is the last we see of Simmerson in the episode, running away. It must be said that I think in the TV adaptation, it slightly heightens his villainy, making him more obviously sadistic, especially in his treatment of the soldiers. The novel gives us more subtle shades of arrogance and cowardice. He next appears in Sharpe's sword, to the absolute disgust of Sharpe. Although he doesn't appear in the novel version of Sharpe's sword, the Marchesa was written to be the one who betrays the British. His scenes were written to expand the web of internal political threats that Sharpe faces. Simmerson, in the show, has weaseled his way into becoming the British representative of the town of Villafranca. When Sharpe re-encounters Simmerson, their mutual loathing is immediate. Simmerson clearly hasn't forgotten how Sharpe humiliated him back at Talavera. His words drip with condescension, and he seizes at any opportunity to belittle or undermine Sharpe. Cochrane plays these scenes with delicious venom. Every line is laced with passive-aggressive smirks, delivering insults just under the line of insubordination. One of the most unsettling aspects of Simmerson's portrayal in Sharpe's sword is his predatory behaviour towards Lass. On multiple occasions, he tried to get her to please him. On the first occasion, she holds her own and expertly shows him on his way. However, the second time when Sharpe and the army are engaged in battle, Simmerson has her at sword point and attempts to rape her. He would have likely succeeded, if not for the intervention of Father Curtis. Michael Cochrane leans into Simmerson's sliminess here. No longer just an incompetent aristocrat, Simmerson becomes an outright predator, showing his moral rot at every level. Unlike in Sharpe's Eagle, Simmerson does not face public downfall in this episode. He weasels through the events. The only real humiliation he gets is from Father Curtis, who slices him up a few times, causing him to weep and cower. After the events of Sharpe's sword, we next see him in Sharpe's regiment, and he is back on home soil and is very closely involved with the bureaucratic and political machinery that runs the British Army. Notably, he's in league with Lord Fenner. At the heart of the plot is a South Essex recruitment scandal. Wellington's army needs fresh troops, and officially, the South Essex has been sending home requests and receiving funds to raise new battalions. But when Sharpe arrives in England to investigate, he discovers the shocking truth. The new recruits don't exist. Simmerson, along with Fenner and corrupt recruiters, have been siphoning off the money. They pocket the funds, sell off the men raised to other regiments, and keep the South Essex on paper only. A hollow regiment. This scheme enriches Simmerson, while leaving soldiers and officers at the front under strength and endangered. And, as if Simmerson isn't bad enough, he has abusive control over his niece, Jane Gibbons, who becomes Sharpe's partner, wife, and eventual foe. Michael Cochrane plays Simmerson's possessiveness with frightening realism. The way he isolates Jane, dominates her, just shows how twisted he really is. Cochrane delivers one of his finest performances in Sharpe's regiment. He evolves Simmerson from the buffoonish coward of Eagle into something darker, a corrupt, controlling, almost mafia-like figure clinging to power at any cost. When the scheme is uncovered, and Sharpe tries to bring justice to Simmerson and Fenner, he does not have any proof as of yet, as Simmerson gave the paperwork to Fenner and ordered it burnt. However, in a classic case of just in time, Lady Carmoyne shows up with the ledgers, which he saved from the fire. detailing the crimes and uses them for blackmail for herself and for Sharpe. Simmerson, due to his influential friends, once more escapes prosecution. A painful reminder of the era's ingrained aristocratic privilege. And, to shelter Jane from Simmerson's wrath, Sharpe becomes engaged to her. The TV adaptation was quite faithful to the novels, but omitted a few things. Delambourd and Price were absent from the episode, along with various scenes, including much of the aftermath of the Hyde Park sequence. We also have Ross appear instead of Nairn. In Sharpe's challenge, we see Simmerson again after more than a decade of absence from the series. This is an original creation by ITV that uses characters and elements from Sharpe's Tiger, Triumph, and Fortress for the screenplay. These are set in India between 1799 and 1803, whereas Challenge is set in 1817. In Bernard Cornwell's novels, Simmerson doesn't appear in any post-Napoleonic stories. Simmerson is also now a general. That's right, the same cowardly disgraced colonel from Talavera is now overseeing British interests in India. A classic case of someone failing upwards because of wealth and connections. Slight historical inaccuracy here. We see Simmerson ordering the flogging of a sepoy. This was, however, not a punishment that was used in the armies of the East India Company. Only King's soldiers were flogged. However, as it is in Simmerson's character to flog, they put it in as a callback. Simmerson is working in India's volatile political climate, helping oversee company interests while keeping an eye on local rulers and mercenaries. Although he is only in charge because General Burrows is somewhat incapacitated. Michael Cochrane plays him, once again, as blustering and pompous, but a little bit more wary. He's older, slightly softened by age, but still utterly convinced of his own superiority. He immediately rubs Sharpe the wrong way, showing that their past animosities haven't been forgotten. There's a mix of old resentment and reluctant cooperation. Simmerson knows Sharpe's reputation and understands he needs him, but he just can't resist the condescending jabs. Sharpe, for his part, still holds Simmerson in open contempt. While Simmerson still serves mainly as an obstruction and an irritant, he's not the central villain. That's Dodd. Simmerson represents the corrupt, rotting colonial administration, greedy, self-serving, and hopelessly out of touch. But, in the end, he survives, slipping away from accountability yet again. Then, when Sharpe's peril comes around, this gives us one of the most surprising turns for Simmerson's character, and possibly his redemption arc. Sharpe and Harper are tasked with escorting Mary Angelique Bonnet to the hill fort of Kalimgong, where her fiancé, Major Joubert, is stationed. They also count in a baggage train headed to Madras, who they accompany as well. All seems fine and dandy until they come across the fort itself. Sharpe and Harper find the entire garrison killed, with the exception of the fort's commander. Guess who it is? That's right, Sir Henry Simmerson. He is staked to the ground, naked in the courtyard, and his mind is addled with heat. He seems to be only able to speak nonsense, such as, "save the harvest." And against all expectations, it is Sharpe who intervenes and saves Simmerson's life. This is a huge reversal from their past. The man who tried to ruin his career and schemed against him now relies on him for mercy. Throughout the episode, we see Simmerson in a rather sorry state, slowly recovering from the effects of treatment from Dragomirov. However, the resultant madness improved his personality a great deal, making him a sympathetic character, as opposed to the general disdain we usually have for him. In the ensuing battle with Dragomirov, Simmerson, still feeling the effects of heatstroke, helps as bravely as he can. He survives the fight and slowly returns to his senses, but there's no dramatic speech or full apology, but there's a subtle shift. Simmerson fights alongside Sharpe, however clumsily, and in the end survives through his help, with the ending of Simmerson saying Richard's name instead of just Sharpe. He knows that it was Sharpe who saved his life, and that shows general growth for someone who he believed to be irredeemable. There is a genuine split of opinion on this decision. After all, Simmerson has been one of Sharpe's most loathed enemies, but some could see it as a realistic evolution. I'd like to know your thoughts on this decision to give him a somewhat nicer send-off. Either way though, I think we can all agree that Michael Cochrane as Simmerson goes down as one of the most iconic in TV history. His portrayal of older Simmerson is fascinating. He doesn't just repeat the sneering villain act, instead he gives us a gradually eroding man. There are flashes of the old Simmerson, snide comments, flustered indignation, but they're tempered by moments of general vulnerability. It's one of the more subtle acting turns in the Sharpe series, and gives the character an unexpectedly human ending. Sir Henry Simmerson's legacy in Sharpe is significant precisely because he represents everything wrong with the aristocratic privilege in the military. Incompetence, arrogance and cowardice. His presence highlights the stark contrast between men like Sharpe, who rise through merit and bravery, and those like Simmerson, who rely solely on their birthright. Yet, paradoxically, Simmerson's consistent failures serve as a catalyst for Sharpe's successes. Each confrontation allows Sharpe to demonstrate his own leadership, competence and bravery. Without Simmerson's incompetence, Sharpe might have never been so dramatically elevated in the eyes of Wellington and us, the viewer. Michael Cochrane's memorable performance further cements Simmerson's place as one of Sharpe's greatest villains. His ability to embody cowardice and arrogance with comedic flair makes Simmerson not just a character viewers love to hate, but also one they just can't help but remember quite fondly. And ultimately, Sir Henry Simmerson remains a cautionary figure, representing the danger of entitlement without merit, and the tragedy of a man forever bound by the reputation he never truly earned. And in doing so, Simmerson becomes one of the most unforgettable supporting characters in the Sharpe series, and TV in general. Thanks for watching this character spotlight on Sir Henry Simmerson. Please do like, share and subscribe to help the channel grow. Let me know your thoughts on Simmerson. Do you prefer his portrayal in the novels or the TV adaptation? And as always, I'll see you over the hills and far away.